Hello, and welcome to your Lab 3 video. This week we're going to configure an Apache web server in the cloud in AWS. You should have already watched Lecture 3, and if you have not, go back and do that because it gives you all the theory behind what we're doing. We're going to access elevated privileges in Linux. We're going to manage packages and update the system, manage services. We're going to modify our VPC security group to allow incoming traffic on port 80 from anywhere, and we're going to implement an elastic IP in AWS to give our Ubuntu server a static IP, and then we're going to use a browser to access our web server. We're actually going to do that both before and after the elastic IP, just because. So I'm going to get logged into AWS, and then we will resume. Alright, I'm logged in, I've started the Learner Lab, and I'm entering, which we've done this before, right? We've done this twice before, you're going to be doing this every week. First things first, we're going to create a new instance in AWS. We're not going to use the first instance that we've used previously, we're going to create a new one. So we can go to Launch Instances. We're going to call it www. Make sure you select Ubuntu. And make sure it's 22.04. We're going to use our existing key pair. We don't need to create a new one. If you lost one, you're going to have to generate a new one. But don't lose this one, because otherwise you're going to run into trouble. We're going to select our existing security group. And we're in the default VPC, which we created. Nothing to change there, nothing here, nothing under advanced details. So let's start it up. Should take a second. There we go. There. And once our instance is running, we can click on it here. Click Connect. You can connect graphically this way through your browser, or from a command prompt, and just open and copy this command here. I'm going to go ahead and paste it in. Hold on, I was doing this in my, be 1 minute. So once you pasted that command in, I'm on my Windows 10 virtual machine now, which you don't have to use. I'm just using this to show you can do this in Windows, right? We're going to say yes. And we're logged in. Awesome. So again, I encourage you to read through the lab instructions and read everything. Don't just follow the video along, right? I'm showing you how everything works, so you can use this as reference. And the idea is that you watch the video and see me do it and make notes and then do it, and it should help. So first thing I'm going to do is clear my screen, which is not in the instructions. And you don't have to. I'm going to issue the whoami command, and we see I am the Ubuntu user, which is the default user we have in Ubuntu and AWS. Sudo whoami, and look at that, it shows I'm root. So, as I've said in the lecture, and we're showing you now, use sudo to execute a command with root privileges. And notice I didn't have to enter my password. So be very careful what you do with sudo. Now we're using Ubuntu, so we're going to be using the aptitude package manager, or apt. We're going to install Apache 2 and update the system. So let's update the system first. Sudo apt -y update. See that run, it's checking all the repositories for updates to see if there's anything that it needs, and it might take it a second. And it looks like we've got a bunch of stuff that can be upgraded, which I'm not going to do right now, but nothing to update. So now that it's up to date, we're going to install Apache. The package for Apache in Ubuntu is Apache 2. So there we go, and we see it should be installing. It's actually installing a bunch of stuff because one of the cool thing app does is it resolves dependencies. So if a package requires something, it will install those additional things. And now that it's installed, this is one of the interesting things about using Apache in AWS, in Ubuntu. Let's check and see if it's running or not using systemctl. So sudo systemctl status Apache 2. And we see it's active, it's running, and it's enabled, so it will start automatically on boot. Normally when you install Apache, you have to start and enable the service. But the way it's been configured in Ubuntu and AWS, that part's done with you automatically, or done for you rather, automatically, when you install it. It's pretty cool. So when you see the service is running, if it's not running, obviously this next part is not going to work. Let's go to our instance ID. Just going to pull this to the side. Let's go back to our instance. And if we just click Open Address here, let's see if we can access it. This is probably going to fail. In fact, I know this is going to fail. Don't panic when it does. Just copy and paste that because that's taking, oh, there we go. So this is going to fail for two reasons. One, it's requesting it through HTTPS, and we did not request it through HTTPS. So let's modify the URL appropriately and try it again. That's not going to fix all our issues, though. It's also going to fail because we haven't allowed it through the security group. And remember, security groups deny all traffic that isn't implicitly allowed, right? So we're going to go into our VPC, security groups, which you can technically get here in EC2 as well, right? Just go down there. And we're going to go to our inbound rules. We're going to edit our rules and add a rule to allow HTTP or port 80 from anywhere. And let's save that. And now this should work. Just hold down Control and F5, and look at that. Control F5 will force a refresh in the browser. It's easier than doing that. We see the default Ubuntu Apache web page. So it works. That's pretty awesome. Now it tells you right here as well where document root is, which I already told you. It's var www.html. var www.html. You should replace this file, which we're going to do next week. We're going to do that next week. But one more thing before we go. We're going to associate an elastic IP, because this is going to change. This IP here, and this DNS entry, this is going to change every time. Now, when we configure DNS, we're not going to use this. We're actually going to give it a more human-readable domain name. But that's not till assignment 1. That's a ways off. It's not till week 9. So to implement an elastic IP, we go under Network and Security. We see Elastic IPs. We're going to allocate an elastic IP from Amazon's pools of addresses. And you don't need to do any of this. We just click the Allocate button. That's it. We don't need to modify anything. And give it a second. We should see we have an elastic IP. But we haven't told it where we want to associate it with. So now we're going to click on Actions, Associate Address. We're going to click in the instance box and select www, which is running. I'm going to check to allow this to be reassociated. I don't think that's necessary, but it seems like a good thing to do. And we're going to click the Associate button. And now we have permanently requested this address right here, this public address, 44.216. Well, in my case, it's going to be this address. It's not going to be this address for you. And if we open it in a browser, look at that, there we go. And if we go back to our instance, we see it's got an elastic IP here. This changed, so we can't just refresh here. But if we go and open this address now, and make sure to change it to HTTP, there we go. And that's it. That's the whole lab. I did that in like 10 minutes. Isn't that nuts? So to complete this lab, you need to take 2 screenshots. One showing your elastic IP. Actually, yeah, one showing your elastic IP would be good. So this right here, screenshot number 1. Screenshot number 2, show me accessing your web page through the browser using HTTP. Submit those to eCentennial. That's the proof of completion for this one. And the exploration questions at the bottom are for additional knowledge to cover what might appear on tests and quizzes later in the course, right? And there are no tests, so really just quizzes, but I left tests in there just in case I decide to add tests to this course at some point. So that's it for Lab 3. It was pretty quick. So in the first 3 labs, just a quick recap, we've learned just enough AWS and just enough Linux to do this, to spin up a web server in AWS, which we're going to use to host a website. And we're actually going to start building that next week after we configure our development environment on the desktop a little bit. So we're going to set up some things like, we're going to use GitHub. So that's something we're going to set up. We're going to set up our editor. We're going to use Visual Studio Code. And we're actually using GitHub Classroom, so there's some additional stuff there, but it actually makes things way easier, and it's awesome. And then we're going to start building a website using that infrastructure and this infrastructure here that we've built. So you can leave this up for now. Don't panic. It's fine to leave that default page there. It's just going to be for a week. Next week, we're going to create our first web page using HTML5. Take care. Be safe. It was a quick lecture, or quick lab video. Thank you for watching. See you next week, or in the next video. Bye for now.